Hey gang, welcome back to another episode of Try Not to Curse. Elizabeth Marvel here. This one is really special. As you guys know, I've been talking about producer Myke's movie Candlewood for quite some time. Candlewood is out. It is released. I have seen it. And today I am joined by one of the actors. I want to say like the star of the film, but that's just my opinion. Jeff is here with us. We're going to talk to him about acting in a local film, auditioning, all of that fun stuff. Jeff and I do not know each other at all, but his wife and I have known each other for years. She was a teacher at my school growing up. I never personally had her as a teacher. I wish I had because she seems like a really fun lady. But thankfully, Jeff has agreed to sit down and talk to us. So hi, welcome.
It's good to be here.
Thank you for coming. I do appreciate it. How long have you been acting?
Since, well, my whole life.
Okay.
If you really want to get... No, I started when I was a kid.
Okay.
My mother was an actress and a singer, yeah.
Okay.
And regionally, she was very well known out of Fairfield County and then into New York and around up to Boston. Anyway, I grew up with it. I saw it as a kid. My dad was musical, so I started acting when I went to camp. And when I was 9, it finally struck me I should try this, and it was available. They had a program where they did shows. They did musical shows, and I did Oliver.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, I got to do it with Leonard Bernstein's kids.
Oh wow.
Alex and Jamie.
How neat.
Yeah, so we became friendly, and then we did Bells Are Ringing, and then the following year I wanted to play baseball. So I went up to the baseball thing. That was my choice.
Yeah.
And then the whole acting troupe came walking down the road with the director, and he walks up to me and he says, "What do you think you're doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to play baseball." And he says, "No, you're not." He said, "You're going to be in my show," because he was going to do Fiddler on the Roof. He says, "You're going to be Tevye."
Wow.
At 10.
That's great, though.
Yeah, so, and then Leonard came out and he brought Adolph Green and Betty Comden, and they met me and they said, "We're going to remember you." Of course,
wow.
They never did. But... And then at 10, the Beatles happened when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And once I saw that, and I saw the electric guitars, I had to play guitar.
Sure.
And I did that for the next 40 plus years. I became a songwriter, singer, producer, had record deals. I was represented by very powerful people, and I messed everything up.
Oh, geez.
And I even collaborated towards the end with other people who were very, very talented, and then they made the same mistakes that I did. They wouldn't listen to me.
Were they easy mistakes to make, though?
Yeah, stuff with understanding that it's all about the public and they really got to like you, or the fact that when you have a record deal, you got to build your business. Nobody hands you a couple of $1 million. That's a myth.
Yeah.
They'll start you out, and then they have their ways of seeing how you're going to do without spending too much money.
Sure.
And then in the last case, the guy was so phenomenal. We had him on stage. He was a local guy here, and I worked with him for 14 years, and we got him a record deal, and he just didn't think it was enough, and he upset the people that were working with him, and we knew that if all we had to do was take him out and put him in front of people, and he would be successful. Because we did a few big shows with people that didn't know him, and everybody just gravitated towards him. He had it.
Yeah.
And nobody in show business, no matter what they say, really knows whether it's a movie or a record or whatever, what the public is really going to embrace. Yeah. And he had it, and unfortunately, he didn't get it either.
Well, at the end of the day, it's a business, right? So you're always hustling. You have to always be in the limelight, get people's attention somehow, keep people's attention, keep their interest. I mean, we're just talking recently, Billy Joel just released his first new single in 30 some odd years, but he's been touring the entire time. His songs always show up in films and things. He's still always right in the public eye, keeping things going. But it's a lot of work.
Oh yeah.
So it's understandable. Have you ever had like a regular 9-to-5, or has it always been in the entertainment industry?
Oh yeah, I'm like everybody else.
Yeah.
I've run a couple of businesses. I've been a contractor. I drove Uber. I worked in food service. I sold clothes.
Yeah.
I mean, you name it. I've done everything. But my heart was never in anything that I did. Right now, to supplement what I do, I work for the New Milford school system.
Oh, okay.
As a para.
Nice.
And it's really funny because the kids all know that I'm in these movies,
Yeah.
and the teachers do, and it's a little weird, you know. They go, "Are you that?"
Right.
You know.
That's got to be fun, though.
Yeah, it is.
So you, again, yes, your mother was an actress. Both of your parents were musical. You went to theater camp. But was there any one thing that you saw or you experienced that you were like, yeah, that's what I want to do?
Well, it was always show business.
Yeah.
It was the only thing that made any sense to me.
Yeah.
Which is why I've pursued it with reckless abandon my entire life, you know, from then until now.
Mm-hmm. Well, so tell my listeners other things that you might have been. So again, in addition to Candlewood, you were also in the film Founders Day, which was filmed here in town. I asked you at the premiere if we're going to see as much of you in that one. You said not so much. It's just kind of a little aside. But what other films or shows might anyone know you from?
I did Wu-Tang and American Saga.
Oh my God, I've seen that.
I did a couple of episodes of that.
Stop. I have to go back and watch. That's cool.
Episode 9, Season 2, and Episode 10, Season 3. And it's unfortunate it went off the air because it was an award-winning show.
So good. That show was great.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, how cool.
I ran BMG Records, RCA BMG.
Yeah, I know BMG.
I was a German man.
Wow.
And Christoph Reiner.
Okay, I have to go back and look for that. That's so crazy.
And I'm the guy that signed them.
Yeah.
Or funded it. Anyway.
Available to watch on Hulu, guys.
Yes.
That's awesome. Oh, how cool.
And I've done a bunch of indies, and early on I did a lot of what we call non-union TV, Discovery ID, reenactment shows and not-so-reenactment shows. You know, there's a progression of things.
Sure.
And then you finally start to do big things that people see. I did Penny Dreadful, City of Angels a few years ago. Mm-hmm. I did some Netflix movies. I did one called Alien Warfare.
Okay.
That was on for quite a while. I was in that. And I've got some more things coming out this year. I did a movie a couple years ago called Salvation with Skeet Ulrich.
Oh.
And Claire Forlani, Thomas Jane. These were my scene partners.
Wow.
Yeah. And I didn't even know who I was on set with because, you know, when you're doing this, you're just going whatever
right. Just another actor, yeah.
And then I got home and my wife said, so who were you on set with? And I told her, and she said, do you know who you were on set with? I said, no, who? She says, I hope you were polite, you know, you were nice guys.
Yeah,
so.
Thomas Jane's a big one for sure.
Oh, yeah.
He was the Punisher, you know, at one point. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, they were all, you know, a thing.
Wild.
Yeah.
It's wild.
I worked with William Sadler in another movie that was done here called, what was it called? Stage of Twilight. Okay. That we did here.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I got to do a scene with him. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
When I did Hulu, the Wu-Tang, my scene partner was Jake Hoffman, Dustin's son.
Yeah.
He's great. So I mean, but I never know. I go to these things and you work with people, you know.
Right. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was just telling. I have been yelling at Myke because after seeing the film and then meeting you and your fellow actor Joel, I'm going through everybody's IMDb and their Wikipedia page, and I'm like, Myke, all of these actors are legit actors.
Oh yeah.
Like Joel was in frickin' Valkyrie. I'm like, whether or not he even met Tom Cruise, you don't get bigger than a Tom Cruise film.
No.
Hello. I'm like, Myke, you have buried the lead. Why aren't you? That's what you should be promoting. Like, yes, it's a hometown movie, but these aren't hometown actors. Like, all of these guys have a crazy portfolio.
Neither was Founders Day.
Yeah. Oh, really?
That was chock full of names.
Really?
Oh,
okay. I'll
yeah.
have to look into that. Okay.
Oh yeah. Matter of fact, Armin Garrow, who opens Candlewood, is a very good friend of mine, lives here, and we wrote a TV pilot over the last 5 months.
Oh, no kidding.
It's great.
Yeah, I opened up his catalog and I was like, Myke, every movie Armin's been in is a huge movie.
Yeah.
Like, why are you not telling this to people? Like, it's just wild. So please, you guys, look up the cast of Candlewood and you're going to be blown away just by the titles alone. It's fantastic. So for anyone who might be interested in doing something like this, like I was supposed to be an extra in the film Holly Jolly that filmed here, but they canceled because of weather or whatever that day. But I've always been interested in just kind of just the little side work. I'll just be a background actor or something. But the opportunity just never really seemed to present itself. But at the same time, maybe there's an outlet out there that I just don't know about. So how would someone either with experience, without experience, get their feet wet and kind of jump into the world of acting?
Well, it's easy, actually.
Oh.
Believe it or not.
Okay.
You don't need an agent. There's a lot available online now.
Yeah.
There's 2 platforms that are just fabulous, actually.
Okay.
That can lead to things. One is called Actors Access, and the other one is called Backstage.
Okay.
And you can put platforms on both of them, and they both put stuff in your inbox every day.
Oh.
Backstage will cost you like $9.50 a month, and then you got unlimited submissions. You can put in as much as you want. You can put as much information on your platform as you want, pictures and videos and whatever. And Actors Access is, if you're not union, it's $68 a month. If you're union, it's $54 a month. And I'm on both. Most of us are that do this. And we have agents as well.
Right.
And, between all that stuff, you hammer the business and you try to get in and get in and get in.
So are you a member of SAG-AFTRA?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And so people, I think, especially after the strike and everything, yeah, people are like, yeah, okay, yeah, sure, we understand the importance of getting paid fairly and that kind of thing. But explain to people what exactly SAG-AFTRA is and what it does for actors.
SAG is the union that represents actors that do, I'm going to say, projects that are considered major projects, whether it's television or film, even smaller projects. And the reason that the smaller projects align themselves with SAG is so they can use SAG actors. SAG actors are really attempt to be the full-time professionals. Non-union actors, it's not really a matter of skill either.
Okay.
It's just a matter of commitment. I mean, if you're really committed to trying to have a career in this business, there's generally better money on SAG projects, especially, and the real projects that people really see, whether it's a movie theater or streaming, are SAG projects.
Okay.
And to get into those, you got to be a union member.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a process to become a member, but it's worth it.
Yeah, well, they take care of you.
Yes.
I mean, it's a union. That's what a union is supposed to do.
Yeah, they make sure you get paid fairly. They make sure the set is safe. They make sure that you're not abused. They set the terms, the base terms for pay scale. And things like that.
Okay. Well, how long have you been a member of SAG?
I'm going to say 9 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I got in pretty early. I was lucky.
Yeah. And so Candlewood is supposed to be, I wouldn't classify it as a horror movie. It's supposed to be like a scary thriller type movie. Is there any particular genre that you prefer, or you read a good script, you like the script, you get in it, or just, the work sounds appealing, the time frame works for your schedule? I mean, how do you choose your projects?
If the project is good, if the integrity is high, if the director is good, that's ideally what you want to be in.
What was it like working with Myke?
Oh, Myke's great.
Myke is great.
He's great.
Yeah.
My wife was actually his 8th grade social studies teacher, so I knew of Myke way back when.
I bet you did, yeah.
Yeah. He's a funny guy, and he used to crack her up in class, and she would come home and tell me stories about Myke.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good. I mean, again, we saw the film over the weekend, had a really nice, successful premiere. All of the Saturday shows have been sold out. It's going to be showing for the next month in our local theater. So again, you have those 2 websites that's how you get sent projects. Your agent sends you projects and that kind of thing. What do you do to prepare? Are you a method actor? Are you really good at memorizing lines? How do you get yourself ready for a role?
It's a balancing act, honestly. When you first start doing it, you focus on probably a lot of the wrong things. It helps to have some talent. It really does.
Sure.
I mean, you can learn skills. You can certainly improve your skills, and you have to improve your skills, especially with TV and film. Well, stage 2. To make you a strong actor, there's a few things to keep in mind and to work on. And I was very lucky early on. I really didn't have to study, being the environment that I was born into and I saw. And thank God I'm lucky enough that I was born with an ability to do this, and I love doing it. But again, like anything else, you got to hone it. And early on, I started acting as an adult in 2011.
Okay.
And I was exposed to and got to work with some very good people who straightened me out right away or guided me. A friend of mine who did study, straightened me out real fast. And a couple of some of the directors I worked with here locally also. And, you put two and two together, but you still have to work on it. And I had the luxury of, we were doing in-person auditions in the beginning, up until COVID. Once COVID happened, you do everything at home now. You film it with your phone. It's great. I got to see what I was doing. Well, before that too, I was doing stuff at home with the camera. And the best way to see what works for you, of course, is to record it and to look at yourself. Because there's a lot of things that work for some people, but they don't work for others.
Sure.
It's crazy. Some people can get away with so much visually within the frame, and it doesn't read as acting. Other people, if they do that, you'd sit there and say, oh, that's terrible. I don't believe a thing they're doing.
Yeah.
And it all boils down to being committed to the emotion of the character and the circumstance that they're in at that moment and blocking everything else out. And that's the most important thing, is becoming somebody else.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah.
And then if you know the content, the lines are easy, especially when the writing is good. The worst thing is when you get scripts where people are trying to write.
Yeah.
And because they don't get it. And sometimes you give it a shot just because you need the money or whatever.
Right.
But it's brutal picking up the lines because it's just the writing is ridiculous. Nobody would speak like that.
Sure.
Nobody would say these things.
Right. Yeah.
But that's really it in a nutshell.
Yeah. Well, so when Mom and I had the conversation with you at the premiere party, I could tell you knew what you were talking about. I could tell it was that it was a passion of yours, because just the little insights that you had into characters that only you would know being immersed in it, and I feel like you already had a character's backstory in your mind, and you knew where this person was coming from. So for me, I was like, okay, he's legit. He really does care about the project that he's in, and it matters that he's got that character worked out in his head so that you can really get into it. And I think, like I said, I think it shows on screen. I do think that you were the main star in the film. I don't know if that's how you interpreted it, but it seemed like, you were certainly in it more than anybody.
You know what these are team efforts. It's a team. It's like a band. And of course I had years of bands and good players too. And you communicate with each other. If your scene partner is hitting his marks and he's right, you're going to do it. And if you're hitting your marks, he's going to do it. It makes the moment real.
Yeah.
And I had the good fortune of having those moments. First of all, the script was great. It was great. The story is just great, and people are going to be very surprised.
It's very compelling, yeah.
When they see this, and it makes you think. And within that framework, Joel was just great, and he was my main scene partner.
Yeah.
And we just, it enabled him to be him, and it enabled me to be me. And me is a very interesting, layered guy. Me is the guy that's from here. And I had the luxury of knowing a lot of people. We've lived here since '98. I grew up in Fairfield.
Oh, okay.
So I had no idea. Fairfield's a whole different, and Fairfield County for that matter, is a whole different world.
Yeah.
You have, within a state like Connecticut, you think, well, how different can it be? But you go all over this state, and it's like going to different countries if you really talk to people.
Yeah.
And this town in particular, you've got a dichotomy. You've got two very specific things going on here. The locals are so different than the transplants. And that's not a bad thing. But I got to spend a lot of time with the locals because I do work for the school system.
Right.
And I know everybody.
Yeah.
I know all the custodians, and they're all local.
Yeah.
And I really got to investigate, because I read the script and I knew who this guy was. And then I got to verify a lot of things with these guys. And I got to ask them questions, things I never did in the 20-something years I've lived here.
Yeah.
Things I wasn't aware of.
Well, and I've always said that Myke is such a good local. That's always what I call him, because he does. He knows everyone. He tried to keep this as homegrown as he possibly could. I mean, the people that printed out the tickets for the premiere was a local print shop. Like, he's really, really good about that. So people who are from New Milford, again, I totally encourage you to see the film, but also because Myke puts in a lot of colloquialisms from, there's a lot of, even from calling it new mildew, which is a nickname from that, which I never called it in high school, but everybody knew the term, and and even just the characters' names, the last name Boardman, the last name Sherman, like all of these are very specific to New Milford. And even though it's a thriller, I do tell people that it's a love letter to New Milford, because all the B-roll, all the landscape, it's really important to him that he showed the beauty of this town.
Yeah.
Because, anyone from outside, it's just some people think, oh, it's some podunk hick town, farm town, whatever. But it's really, there's more to it than that. So he did a really good job there, for sure.
Yeah, the town's got a soul.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly.
And it's a transitional town. It's positioned very interestingly geographically, because it's in between. It's the beginning of the Berkshires.
Yeah.
I'm a skier.
Okay.
When we first moved up here, I didn't even know this was up. I call Candlewood Lake like the best kept secret in Connecticut. Nobody knows, but when Fairfield County people, or I think for anybody from the state, comes to this area, they go, "Wow,
yeah,
what have I been missing?
Yeah,
why do I live there?"
Right.
The town is, and the people are great. They're so warm and they're real, and they got their reasons for feeling the way they do, but. The finger always gets pointed in the wrong direction, I think.
That's fair, yeah.
Economics is economics. It has nothing to do with people.
Yeah. Well, and, again, like I said, Myke is a really good local. I've always been a bad local because I'm constantly in Danbury or Newtown. My best friend lives in Newtown. I always worked in Danbury. I never really worked here in New Milford until recently with my current job. But when I left the premiere, I kind of had that feeling of, yeah, like this is my town, seeing people that I knew, meeting new people, but just walking away and feeling this sense of community, and this, like, it was like one of the first times that I really felt like, well, yeah, I get, this is my hometown and I do have roots here, and I do feel a part of the landscape. And I don't know, maybe it's just the power of Myke. That's what Myke brings out in people. You know what I mean? He just brings everybody together in that way. But it's really cool to see us showcased in a film like this. I mean, again, we've been in Mr. Deeds and, like I said, Founders Day, Holly Jolly. There have been films shot here in town.
A lot.
But again, it was so important to Myke that it was all New Milford that was featured. He didn't go off to another location and get any shots or anything like that. It was all New Milford shots. So that's just really cool. So what advice do you have? So again, you said you've made some bad decisions over your career, and you've seen other people, falter. And so when I was trained at the job that I'm in now, the person that was training me had been there for 30 years. And the number one thing I took away from his training was he had said to me, listen, there's a lot of personalities here. Everyone has a different story, but you're here to do a job. So take what you can use and throw the rest away. Mm-hmm. And that's what I try to, relay to everybody, because I think that's really, really good advice. So what have you seen what are the kind of the bad decisions that you have seen people make, or the just the wrong turns that are so easy to make over the years? Just
not being open and saying yes. William Shatner said it a long time ago. It was great. And it stayed with me. Unfortunately, I didn't get it while I was doing music for me. I did get it while I was collaborating with other people. And that was just say yes, especially in this business, because doors open and close real fast. And you never know what's going to lead to the next to what?
Right.
And everything does, or if you're persistent about it, in some way could or would lead to something else. And it's not necessarily going to be a lateral move.
Sure.
You're even if you move up slightly is a move. You're still progressing, but you can't progress if you're not doing it. And that's the key, is just being open to opportunities. And even if you don't recognize the opportunity, but within the circumstance, just go with it, because what else are you going to do if that's what you really love to do?
Well, so in what situation would you say, okay, maybe don't say yes to that? You know what I mean? Like, because I'm sure there's some. At what point is there, just so many red flags that it's like, yeah, maybe this isn't the right move.
Yeah, okay, I can give you that too.
Yeah,
because especially in this bit, there's a lot of predatory people in it. All kinds of scams and nonsense. People pay me this and you can meet this guy. And the only thing you've got to really keep in mind, networking is a pitfall, especially when you got to pay for it. And there's a lot of situations like that, or classes that really aren't going to lead. You're going to pay a lot of money and it doesn't mean anything. The realities of this business, the visual business, not in the music business, but the visual business, are your looks, and these are things you can't control. How you look, because one of the big considerations for getting cast is visual chemistry. Well, they'll probably throw pictures of potential people for roles on a table when it's casting time and say, how do these people look together? Well, I don't like that one. Here, what about this? And they'll throw that on the table.
Sure, yeah.
Because visual consideration is huge. But don't get taken in by people that are trying to convince you that paying for things is going to get you somewhere. If you're going to network, the only advantage networking that you could do is if you somehow are introduced to people that are doing more than you are, that are really in it. The trouble with the business is they're really not open to letting people in that aren't of that ilk. If you're not monetized, if you're not making money, or you don't have a track record of money behind you and an audience as a creative, whether it's a director or an actor or whatever, very difficult. That's the reality of it. And you've got to be able to weather that. And you can. You just got to be persistent. That's why I say you say yes, because you may do, like, for example, I'm going to do a project next week where I'm going to Maine. I'm going to do a short film. But the people are excellent. And everybody has just raved about them, the director, and I read the script, and I've seen his work. So I don't know who's going to see that.
Right.
Somebody's going to see it. Somebody's going to see what I've done previously. And eventually you get so much going on that they can't deny you anymore. They got to let you in, because one way, give this guy a break, because potentially we really think he could do it. Or you've just got enough going on to they say, well, people have seen it. For example, people are going to see Candlewood.
Right. They're
going to see Founders Day. And I got a pivotal scene in that movie. And it's stuff like that. And people pay attention. And, especially today with the internet and blogging and all kinds of reviewers, and they start talking about you. The industry doesn't care why.
Right.
All they care about is that they are, and they're paying attention. If they're paying attention from these things that, it wasn't an MGM movie, but look what happened.
Right. Well, and again, that's why I was scolding Myke for not putting out all of, because again, you hear, oh, it's a local movie, so people think it's just some cutesy thing, and it's probably going to look like really indie, but it doesn't at all. It really does look like a feature film. It sounds like a feature film, but it's got featured actors in it, legit actors. These aren't just friends of Myke's that he called up and said, are you free this weekend? I've got a project. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what I kept giving Myke shit about, because I was like, dude, like, you have all of these really good actors who have been in you were in the freaking Wu-Tang show. Like, come on. Like, it doesn't get bigger than Wu-Tang. So, I mean, those kinds of things, I'm like, why are you, like, it's really cute that you're promoting the fact that, yes, it's locally made and it's featuring New Milford and da-da-da, but it's not a local film.
No, I think the thinking is.
Yeah, right.
The thinking is let the work do the work.
Yeah.
People, if they see it, for example, I know that just right here, they're going to do these sneak peeks all this month. It's a great opportunity. I'll tell you why. A lot of film and television industry lives up here.
Right.
People don't know that.
Yeah.
They're in Litchfield County. They're hidden. They come out here. They have second homes here. They live. If they're in New York, people are going to come watch this.
Yeah.
Plus, the fact that so many people are seeing it. We know that a lot of people bought tickets, probably more than big movies that come into Bank Street.
Yeah.
Because I've been to a lot of them. You got 10, 15 people typically at a show. We're going to have a lot of people. That's gonna percolate, and people talk, and that's really what promotes anything.
Absolutely.
That's the thing again, which goes back to what we spoke about in the beginning. That's the factor that nobody can predict.
Yeah.
Are people really going to like this?
Yeah.
And the fact this project right out of the gate has had legs. It's amazing. They didn't do it. They had no marketing budget in the beginning.
Right.
Radio picked up on it. Print picked up on it. Television everybody covered this movie, and people just got more and more excited.
Yeah.
And it has a current all by itself. Yeah. And that's going to translate, and again, people are going to see it, they're going to talk, who's in it? Oh, look, so and so and so, and it also it's going to register. And I think it's better than, it didn't come out of Hollywood, so it didn't have the $500,000 promotion budget.
But even if they do, sometimes they falter on that. A friend of mine and I talk about it all the time because I literally just saw 2 films last night. I see more movies than a lot of people. I'm in the theater constantly. That's my hobby. That's what I really enjoy and I care about. And I can talk ad nauseum. But a friend of mine and I were talking. I just saw Origin and Miller's Girl last night. And unfortunately, the theater in Danbury that I go to only had both of them for a week, and that's it. They're gone.
Right.
And my friend and I were like, it doesn't even make sense. Miller's Girl's nominated. There's all these different things going on. Why on earth they were? But it's because they weren't advertised. So Miller's Girl, I never saw a single trailer for it until I purchased my ticket.
Right.
Origin, there has been a lot of buzz. It's based on the book Cast. It's Ava DuVernay has written and directed it. It's based on a true story. It's based on the writings of this book that was in the New York Times #1 bestselling. But again, if you're not in people's face all the time, if you're not constantly trying to keep people talking about it and interested in it, you're not going to get butts and seats. Unfortunately, I saw Origin completely alone last night in the theater.
Yeah.
Miller's Girl had a couple of people in there when I saw it, but again, and even those big stars, big name actors are in both films. Not a whole lot of attention going on there.
Were they indies or were they studio films?
I think they were both studio films. Miller's Girl definitely seemed to be a studio film. I mean, Jenna Ortega's in it. Martin Freeman is in it. I mean, these are big names who are in current things.
You didn't see any promotion online for them? And nothing?
I didn't see anything for Miller's Girl until after I had gotten my ticket. Then, of course, the algorithms all of a sudden start coming in. So I got ads for that. Origin, I had seen trailers for constantly, being in the theater all the time.
Right.
But I don't know if it was the heavy subject matter or if it just maybe the trailer didn't fully explain the subject matter. But again, you would think it's based on this book Cast that was a really big deal, especially in 2020 with the election and all that.
Yeah.
So but it is. So like I said, that's the kind of things that we talk about how you never know, but the only way you're getting people's attention is if you're constantly getting people's attention.
Right.
We talk about the Oscar nominations all the time, and everybody's all upset about Ryan Gosling and Barbie and all this kind of thing. But at the end of the day, I don't know if you're a part of the Academy.
Me personally?
Yeah.
No.
So my understanding is you have to have been nominated or won in order to be invited into the Academy. Is that correct? And then they all vote based on whatever the submissions are?
As a voting member?
Yes. Yeah.
Probably.
I believe that's how it works.
Okay.
So I was trying to explain this to a friend of mine as well. I said, everybody is upset about Barbie and all that kind of thing, but people tend to forget that it is a democracy in that sense. It's not just one body saying, oh yeah, we kind of like this, whatever. It's whoever's, all these hundreds of actors and directors and writers and
who
have a say. And also, then, and again, this is more just an aside for my listeners. I apologize to go on this tangent, but also it's what is submitted. So some studios, for whatever reason, will submit for an actor, or they'll submit for, best picture or writing, whatever.
That's true.
So there's a very famous story, Robin Williams in Aladdin. They couldn't submit for original screenplay because Robin had ad-libbed so much of what actually made it into the film. So so there are these parameters that nobody knows about and nobody understands the rules. Mm-hmm. So that's just on a little aside, because the Academy Awards are coming up. That's what I call my Super Bowl. So it's very much on my mind all the time. And I take work off for it. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to throw that out there. But back to our conversation about what to do and what not to do. I think people get very, very hung up on trying to keeping up with the Joneses. So when you're an actor and you're surrounded by people who are in the industry, it's really hard to constantly remind yourself that you may not be at the same level that someone else is at.
I'm going to tell you something. This
Sure.
is the dirty little secret.
Okay.
It's not about level. It's just be the best you can be.
Well, I think, but that's what I mean. I think people have a hard time because they get them, so Kevin Hart has a joke early in his career about partying with LeBron James.
Sure.
And how they are not on the same level financially, socially, you know what I mean?
But who's keeping score?
Well, but but he's saying, but you do kind of have to think about those things, because he's talking about, so we went out to a dinner or what have you, and then LeBron was like, we're going to do this, and Kevin's like, I got to go to the bank and I got to take stuff from my savings and put it in my checking. So people, they want to be immersed in it. They want to be a part of it. They want to be a part of that world. But sometimes you have to take a step back and say, you know what? No, I'm not there yet. And that's okay. It doesn't mean you're not going to get there, but you got to do the work.
Yeah, you got to remember you're not competing with anybody. There's no competition.
But that's so hard, right? Mentally
But you've got to, if you don't, you'll consume yourself.
And that's just it, yeah.
You got to, if you really want to try and do this, it's like anything else. I think to be at the top of anything, what do people really have? Who really knows anything about anything?
Yeah,
I mean, really.
Yeah, that's fair.
Really.
Yeah.
Everything is, even in science and medicine, and everything is a theory.
Yeah.
Theoretically, or the odds, or nobody knows anything. So if you could just keep that in mind, no matter what it is you're doing in life, and with acting, the notion is, oh, is he better than me? I got to up my game. You can't. Because you're two separate individuals. And in the end, with a lot of indie stuff that nobody ever gets to see, by the way.
Yeah.
90% of the time, these people hire their friends. They do I don't even know why they bother to go out and do the audition process. Right. Because in the end, they just hire people that they know from their town or whatever.
That's how Kevin Smith and Adam Sandler have been functioning this whole time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about them, but I'm talking about indies that nobody sees.
Sure,
all these things. And people are competing and they're, I didn't get it. Well, you didn't get it because he hired his friend.
Sure.
And he just, they're all Scorsese. Everybody's Scorsese. And even with the real stuff, it's not that they're hiring their friends, but they have to justify things like, we're going to pay these people a lot of money. So we have to be able to justify that to a producer.
Sure.
And if we can sell him on the idea, well, look at his track record, look at his demographic. That's getting back to what I said about monetization. And he looks right for the part. Okay, well, sign him. He could bring in 5 million people, at the first screening or whatever. Yeah. And that's how it works.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so difficult to get in. That's what you're up against.
Well, and you want to be surrounded by people who are just as passionate as you are.
Oh, yeah.
So when you hire a friend, sometimes the friend, I'm just doing this guy a favor. They're not gonna put their heart and soul into it. They're not gonna kill themselves for that role or that project. They're just helping you out on a weekend.
Right. And if you dwell on that too,
they don't have the same vision. Yeah.
And knowing that, if you're something that you submitted for, but knowing in your heart when you didn't get it, that was the reason, and it kills you because you did do that and you killed the audition, and you did because you could look at it.
Yeah.
Because you did it at home, you sent it in, but these are the things you just got to let go. You let go and you wait for whatever you're supposed to get, you're going to get. The door's going to open for the things you're supposed to get.
So how do you handle rejection? And this is not a commentary on you by any means,
No.
but I would imagine you get more no's than you get yeses.
Oh.
And how do you keep going?
Remembering that it's a numbers game, and seeing an increase in activity, and knowing again that what I'm supposed to get is what I'm going to get. And there's reasons. The people that are in it for real. Again, I'm going to go back to this thing I'm going to do next week. Most of the things I get, believe it or not, I don't submit for. People find me, and then I get to know them.
Yeah.
And other people that I know, that I have respect for, know them and come back at me and say, oh, that person. And I know that they found me. That's very uplifting.
I'm sure, yeah.
And that's very verifying to me.
Absolutely.
And as far as rejection, again, I never feel rejected. I get angry because of the process, and I know that it doesn't represent anything. I know the realities of the parameters of getting something. And luckily, the things I get tend to be really good. And that's important. So I've done some stuff that's garbage too, in the process.
Sure, yeah.
And it wasn't wasted time because
Keep building the portfolio.
Yeah, and people will still come up to me and say, your scene was the only thing that made sense in the movie. What you did was great.
Yeah.
I go, okay, well, that's all I can do.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was a stepping stone. At some point, again, someone's going to see it and that knows me, that heard my name somewhere else and say, that's that guy.
Well,
and that's how you move up.
Well, and I always say experience is the best education. So even if the movie's not great or gets panned or whatever the reason, you had that experience that you can now take whatever you learned from that and use that moving forward.
Oh, yeah.
So it's to me, it's, so people need to, again, but it's all kind of a mental game too, because you have to constantly remind yourself of that I did get something out of it. And
Always.
Maybe it's not the result I wanted, but it's going to help me move forward.
Yeah, and somewhere down the road, because it becomes a matter of, as we said, name recognition. Internally in the industry first, externally with the public finally, because that's what enables you to sustain yourself.
Yeah.
And have a career and do what you love to do.
Yeah.
You got to love the art, you got to love the process, which I do. Being on set makes me so happy. I've never been on a set I was unhappy being on.
That's awesome.
Yeah. The one thing I wanted to also say about this is Victoria, the executive producer, who's a very good friend of me and my wife, came to me 3 years ago. I was actually the first person to get cast in the movie.
I was going to ask about that process, but okay, we'll get there.
Because everybody else did get cast. Well, actually, they found Joel.
Okay.
Myke found Joel. I think everybody else auditioned, or it was some kind of a process, but it came through New York. Mm-hmm. I was the first person. My wife and I were doing a remodeling 3 years ago. We live on the lake.
Yeah.
And we were out of the house at that time. We were living in Fairfield, actually, my mom's house, and we were commuting up here for work or whatever. And my wife was at our beach, and she met Victoria, and they became fast friends. And then my wife said, oh, I met this woman, she's just great, and her husband, and she's a movie producer, which she was starting out.
Yeah.
She wrote a book. I mean, she's done so much. She's very dynamic, and she's an incredible person.
Yeah.
And so she came home and she said, I've got to introduce you to this person. I said, yeah, right, okay. So we have a boat. My wife she has a pontoon. We used to have a ski boat, which I sold when I started acting because I needed the money.
Sure.
I had to blow some bills out. And there was a lot of equity in the boat. So we go out on the pontoon. We had Victoria come out with us, and we meet, and we're talking, and she says, I'm going to produce a movie. I said, oh, really? She says, yeah. She said, you're going to be in it. I said, oh, okay. And then it kind of went away, and I thought, you're right. And then it got more and more serious as we were moving along, and she said, one day she said to me, "Oh, I looked at all your stuff. I looked at your IMDb. I've seen all your reels."
Oh, wow.
She said, "You don't think I would just throw this at anybody? It's a big..."
Well, that's it. That's, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I went, well, I was flattered. I said, "Oh, wow, thanks." So, but anyway, getting back to Victoria and the script, she wrote this initially with another guy from New York. She had the idea. She moved up here. She was actually part of a transplanted family that came up because of COVID.
Sure.
They were part-timers. They bought a house up here in our neighborhood, and they became full-timers real quick because they loved being here, and it was very expensive living in the city, and she no longer had to be in the city, and nor did her husband, who's an internationally known fashion model.
Oh.
Just as an aside.
Okay.
She used to be a hedge funder, so she was very savvy with business.
Sure.
Anyway, they decided to move up here, which they did, and we met. And then she had this idea to write this script. She found out about all of the legends that and the stories about this area, and she thought, "Oh, this would be great to incorporate into a movie." And she had the idea for the story. And she wrote it with a director from the first guy who was supposed to be the director from New York, and it was okay. The language wasn't real good, and then in the process of putting the team together, she met Myke, who's great, and Myke ended up he was going to be the AD, the assistant director, and he ended up becoming the director.
Yeah.
And then Victoria and Myke rewrote the script to make the language really bang.
Yeah.
But she so nailed when people see this movie and they see or take in the story, it is so legitimately based in life here. And it is such a story that could happen under certain circumstances.
Yeah.
It's like Hitchcock. It's not, which is what makes it really interesting. And the fact that she came in from another place and got the vibe of this place. And it was so, I'm going to say, let's put it this way. She did it without, it was instinctual for her. Because when I read the script and I was pointing things out to them about what they wrote and what was in there, really, wow. They didn't even, half of the stuff they didn't even realize was in there. And the story is just so thick with subtext.
Right, sure.
It's just amazing, especially, as I said, for somebody who came here and literally did this within months of being here.
Yeah.
And she nailed it. So just want people to know that. Also, I got the opportunity to do a little writing in it myself.
Oh, good.
Also, which was for my character.
Yeah.
And that's always cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So what is the typical audition like? Is it like what we see on TV and film? Like, the agent will send you something, or like you said, you get it online and you get a couple lines and maybe a little background to the character, probably not a whole lot. And then you go into a room. It all just seems so awkward and just so uncomfortable. And this is why I could never act, because it'd be one thing, like I'm one of those people, like if you throw me into the thick of it, then okay. But if it's just one-on-one in a room with a complete stranger,
right,
and I need to somehow feel and produce this, pull this person out of me, I don't have the capability for something like that. But is that really what it's like, or is there more to it, or is it that cut and dry?
Well, now, as I said, you get to do these things at home. Used to be you'd have to go to New York and go into a studio with 3 or 4 people or 10 people who'd stare at you with a camera. No. And you hold the sides, what we call the sides, which is a page or two of dialogue, and you have to become this person. That is always, that's probably the most uncomfortable,
I bet,
part of doing this thing. That really went away with COVID. Now you get to learn the 2 or 3 pages, which is very easy for me now because of the way I approach it. As I said, and I guess other people do it too. I can learn 3 pages in an hour.
Cool.
And then do it and become the person. What's tough about it is, without seeing an entire script, as you said, which really tells you the story and lets you know who this person is within the framework of that story, you've got to kind of get it from the 3 pages you get. Sometimes they'll give you a pretty involved description of the person and the intricacies of the person. but more often than not, they don't, and you just got dialogue. And so you have to have a pretty good imagination and get a sense of the character off the page, the vibe. It's not that hard to do because most of the time, most characters aren't much of a stretch to do that.
Yeah.
If they are, you just you decide, well, I guess he's like this and he feels like this because look what they're talking about.
Right.
Sometimes, occasionally, you'll get the whole script with indies.
Okay.
They'll send you the whole script if they're really serious about it and they really want to get a sense of your interpretation, who you think this person is. But again, in the end, I really don't think it matters because if you're in consideration for real at all, they're looking at how you look and they can fix all the rest in the editing.
Well, I do recall years ago, I mean, this is probably early 2000s or so, there was some, I think it was MTV was doing some kind of behind the scenes making of this film. Or I think it actually was exploring, indie actors trying to break out into the mainstream. And there was one actress who had a real problem with Hollywood sexualizing everything, and everybody's got, I'm not a Playboy bunny. I'm here. I want to do some real dynamic work and that kind of thing. So she was given a script, and that's what they wanted. They wanted a sexy character, and she went in her audition. She tried to be like really strong and like really kind of more forceful and rather than delicate and feminine. And she didn't get the role, and she was like disappointed. It's like, but they're telling you specifically what they want.
Right. And
you're not established in the industry to make those decisions to just completely alter the character and for some reason think that they're gonna get it. So I think people do make those mistakes as well. I mean, would you agree with that you have to just go in for what they're asking for?
Well, there's two ways to approach it.
Okay.
You can either do what it says, or you can take a shot and knowing that it's probably not a consideration anyway. So you got nothing to lose. Okay. So if you want to make an impression and you really don't have much of a track record, so you take it a whole different way.
Yeah.
And then they think it might be the thing that actually causes them to cast you or consider you.
Okay.
Over known commodities or more known commodities who maybe did it to the letter. Or maybe they didn't do it to the letter either. It's a choice you make as an actor. You take a shot. Because, again, you never know what they're really thinking or looking at. And you're not competing. You're just, here I am, I'm a product, or whatever.
But again, I feel like and it's probably from your years being in it. And again, like you said, with your background growing up, I feel like you're coming at it very realistically. You live in reality, as I always say.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't think many people trying to make it in the industry are. I think they do get very competitive and they do get in their head and they do make assumptions.
You're right.
And
it's easy to do.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because, again, a lot of people suffer as a result. And and
they just continue to torture themselves.
Yeah, and it is what it is. These are things we have no control over. And there are a few real advisors in this business who put it in print and will say it, who were casting directors or are, and they'll say, don't beat yourself up because this isn't what it's about anyway. Not really.
Yeah.
Not really. And if you keep that in mind, you'll probably do a better performance. Not that it's going to get it for you anyway, but at least you'll be happy. When you do an audition, and I've had this discussion with Armin too, all you can do is do the best you can for your own head. So if that was the only thing that I ever did for that project, at least I can look at that or think about it and say, yeah, I did really good. I had fun with that. You got to have fun.
Yeah.
That's why we do it, ultimately. It's because it's fun. So have fun with it when you do it and treat it, and that's it. And then forget about it. And if they call you, bonus, right? Isn't that great?
Yeah. So, and I had this discussion with Dan a couple episodes back. What do you say when people just, they're a terrible actor, and they, in my opinion, again, just because I've seen so many films, I wouldn't consider myself a critic by any means.
Everyone's a critic.
Well, we all have opinions.
Yeah, sure.
But I always say to people, were they legitimately a bad actor, or was it bad writing? and bad editing, because editing can change the story
Oh, yeah.
so much, and people don't realize how much is shot, how much dialogue there might have been previously. There's a famous story from Pamela Anderson when she was filming Baywatch, and she wanted to be taken seriously. She had a really big monologue that she worked really, really hard on, but at the end of the day, they just wanted her to look cute in a bathing suit.
That's
and they
right.
cut the whole monologue out, and she was devastated.
I saw the movie.
Yeah, and I think that was what drove her to just decide I don't need to be doing things like that anymore. But people don't know that all of this stuff goes on behind the scenes in the background, and they just take it for what it is. Oh, that actor was crap.
We call it post-production.
Yep.
And you can make or break most things in post-production. It's a balancing act. I was a studio animal with music for forever. I owned a studio. The guy I worked with up here, we had a great. We made records.
Yeah.
And all the records that got put out for his record deal, we recorded up here. And so I'm a gear hound, and I understand the balancing act with interfacing with gear. And with movies and television, you've got that many more parameters. Not only do you have sound as a consideration, but you've got all the visuals as consideration. You've got all the cuts and how you're going to tell the story visually. Because these are visual mediums. Even though people speak, you've probably heard this before, a good movie without dialogue, you could just watch it with the sound off and you would know what was happening.
Sure, yeah.
So that's a very important consideration, how that goes together. And all of these things you can have the best performance in the world, and if everything isn't balanced and it isn't told properly or shot properly and told, that's why actors that make a living at this are so concerned about finally when they're living at a very high level and it's a very expensive lifestyle and they got to maintain that. They're very concerned with who they work with because those people are the people that are going to determine how these people are seen and consequently have a grand effect on the continuation of the actor's career, depending on the success of that current project. Because it's always, what have you done lately?
Right.
And people look at that and go, okay, well, we can use you for the next thing because look how great you were. Well, you were great in that because of all the 9,000 people that were involved in that as well as you. Yeah. They presented you properly.
But isn't it so important that everybody is on the same level?
Yeah.
I mean, you always hear those stories of, Christian Bale famously had an outburst, Russell Crowe famously had an outburst, Tom Cruise famously had an outburst, and everybody's like, oh, these actors, like, suck it up, you're such a baby, did it. But I wouldn't say it's make or break, but I think they approach every project like it's make or break.
Well, they have
because
to.
It means so much to them.
Yes, they want to sustain their career and they don't want a bad mark.
Well, and I think, and again, like you said, being at that level, then they work at such a high standard that now they expect that standard to be met across the board wherever they are. And some people fail at it. Some people meet them there. But I just feel like everybody just looks at it as like, oh, just go back to your little mansion and, just call your driver to get you a coffee and you'll be all right. You know what I mean? But it's, listen, I work a factory job and I still give a damn about what goes on inside those four walls, even though at the end of the day, I'm just a cog in a wheel. I'm just a number. You know what I mean? But we all have that. And it just, every time I hear people give people shit for it, I'm like, but you also care about your stupid little 9-to-5 where you're insignificant. So why don't you get it? It's,
and again, for them, they're just trying to not have to sell the house.
Right.
They want to stay there for a while longer. They'd like to.
Yeah.
And everything is based on what did you do? What was your last thing with the public?
Yeah.
They don't want to let the public down either. It's all brand. It's perception. It's maintaining. So everything is a factor in that, and that's why they get so concerned about it.
Yeah. I'll tell you. It's the whole industry is just so fascinating to me. All the ins and outs, the good and the bad, because it's just, at the end of the day, you're there to entertain people. And some people take it seriously like I do. And some people are just like, I haven't been to the movies in years, whatever. Well, so what other advice might you have for anyone who either might be interested or getting into the industry, or just, just the casual moviegoer? What's something that people should kind of keep in the back of their mind whenever they go see a film?
Just treat it for what it is. Don't go in. Don't start trying to take it apart. If you were entertained and you got something out, even if you didn't get anything out, but you were just entertained, that's all it is. It's an escape. You paid your $10 or $11 or $12 to sit and escape your reality for an hour and a half or 2 hours. And if it did that, bonus, again, it did what it was supposed to do. Yeah. And go and tell people about it, and people will continue to do these things and continue to entertain you.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I refuse to refer to myself as a critic. I'll say at the very least, maybe I'm a movie reviewer. Because I say that to people all the time. I'm like, what you like is not necessarily what I like. So I can give you a recommendation, or I can tell you my thoughts on a film, but it means nothing at the end of the day, because you're going to come with your own opinion. Yeah. But that's exactly how I approach it. If I go in and I leave entertained, they've done their job. Yeah. If I can get deeper meaning, something even more fulfilling out of it, fantastic. Right. But I've seen some snoozers too. But again, that's my opinion.
Like some people might not like Kubrick.
Right. Right. Well, who are some of your favorite directors?
Oh God, Spielberg, Scorsese. Yeah. There you go. And I love what Spielberg and Tom Hanks do. Yeah. They are the Norman Rockwell, to me, of movies.
That's a really nice way to put it. Yeah.
Well, they are. They always get some human essence. Yeah. They take you somewhere where you're just sitting there just feeling for these people. They've done some amazing things with their war epics. Mm-hmm. They did the Pacific. They did Band of Brothers. I read Band of Brothers. So going in, I was blown away. Of course, Saving Private Ryan was the beginning of that. Tom Hanks just gets it, and they work so well together with this. I'm watching Masters of the Sky now, which just started on Apple. Mm-hmm. It's just fantastic. It's about I forget what it is, but it's one of the bomber groups from the Second World War. So now it's the Flyers. And the way they depict it, and people just, I can't say enough, but they get there. Yeah.
Then I'll give you a recommendation, Godzilla -1. You need to see it. Okay. If you're into the films, and I've said this to everyone, I've not seen every Godzilla film that's out there, but the way this one is shot, the way the story is told, it is just phenomenal. Yeah. It is phenomenal. And I cannot recommend it enough. It's still in theaters right now. It is also Oscar nominated for the visual effects. Wow. But they went so far as they released it in color, but now they've also re-released it in black and white. Wow. Because when you sit in the theater, the way they filmed it, it truly feels like a movie that came out in like the 60s. Yeah. It feels like one of the original Godzillas. Oh, you know what? It's really cool.
Speaking of that looked like it got filmed in the 60s, there's a movie right now, Bank Street, I think, still called, we saw it, we actually watched it on, was streaming too. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, Kelly got, my wife. Yeah. She got the video from the library. Oh, okay. The Holdovers. Yes. With Paul Giamatti. Yes. Amazing.
I love that movie.
And they really, it looks like a movie that was shot in the 60s, which is when it's supposed to taken place, or the 70s, whatever.
Yeah, 60s, 70s, yeah.
But it's got the sound, it's got it looks filmy. Yep. And it just adds to the whole vibe of the thing. It really takes you there. Yeah, just absolutely. Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Great movie.
Yeah, so good. I just talk about recommendations all day. And this is the problem. I worked in a movie theater briefly, and everybody, that would come through, because I've seen everything, so I'd give them my opinion, whatever. We'd talk to people about the films afterward. I just love talking about film. Yeah. So I can do that all day, but we're not going to. We're going to stop here. But again, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us. You guys, please go see Candlewood. See Founders Day. Like I said, I still haven't seen it yet, but Candlewood, lovingly made by some locals, some not so locals.
And it opens tonight.
And oh man, it's so cool. It's really so cool. But again, this was Try Not to Curse. Thank you all for joining us. We will catch you next time.